Assalamu alaikum, and thank you for PWA and Dr. Sabrina and Dr. Usman and Dr. Kokub and everyone else for inviting me. It's, I think, our second session after Manchester. And I've been asked to speak in English in the first session, and you'll have to bear me in the second session in Urdu as well when I am hopefully being joined by Sabir Shakir and Imran Riaz as well. So the first part of the talk that I will briefly basically discuss with you how Pakistan is descending into its darkest era of dictatorship, which I just labeled as Dictatorship 2.0, and in a moment I will explain why it is a new version of dictatorship which is so different from our previous declared dictators, because this one is, it's not our own declaration. By declaration of his own course mates was called the deceiver. So therefore his dictatorship is not very genuine, but it's in its new form. But before I talk about, I think there's one point I wanted to, which Dr. Sabrina was mentioned, but that's also the power of leaks, because Dr. Sabrina was mentioning the leak of Commonwealth report, which was suppressed for over a year, which entails the details and actually gives in details how this Form 47 government is now existing in Pakistan. But because of the leak done by Drop Site a few weeks ago and the pressure that was being built, and I personally know that a lot of people from the UK have actually been writing to the Commonwealth Secretariat. There has been a campaign in Pakistan by various lawyers. There's a letter writing campaign by female lawyers of Pakistan, and that all actually has pushed the Commonwealth Secretariat to release officially the leaked report last week. So that's like one of these small triumphs that actually we should celebrate. Likewise, I will talk in a bit, and probably in the second session with my journalist friends Sabir Shakir and Imran Riaz, that what has been achieved in through a protest of 4 or 5 days in Kashmir, Azad Kashmir, yesterday, how we are not being able to achieve that in the mainland in Pakistan. But just coming back to the Dictatorship 2.0 and how the new Field Marshal is writing Pakistan's darkest chapter, we all have to understand that we're living through a very interesting period of our history, and that's not its usual, the military coups that have happened in the past as well, in form of starting from General Ayub Khan and then going to Zia and then eventually to Musharraf. But it's a very different time, and new tactics have been evolved. This is the reason I call it Dictatorship 2.0, because it's a different model, it's a new model, where the constitution is not shredded with martial law, but it's with amendments. And Dr. Sabrina had mentioned about the 26th constitutional amendment, but we have to take a moment to actually understand how this is a dictatorship, because these constitutional amendments, because the very word constitutional amendments takes your mind away from any sort of dictatorship. But they're using these terms and these methods to hide what really it is. Because if you go back to the beginning of this whole darkest era, that's 2022 regime change. And that was the predecessor of the current Chief of Army Staff, Field Marshal, General Bajwa. And how he achieved the regime change also tells you the tale of the new tactics that have been adopted by the Pakistani military for its new era dictatorship. Now, the regime change operation had the word no confidence motion. Now, that is a constitutionally mandated option that is available to the parliament to change its own governments and prime minister. Now, the usage of that, we have seen how that was used, how the loyalties was shifted, how a party was destroyed. So that actually tells you how this whole new era of dictatorship came about. And same is the story of all the constitutional amendments. Now, to actually understand the dictatorship 2.0, and that's the whole point of actually making the world to see how this is dictatorship, plain and simple. We should not try to even say it's a Form 47 government, because even that Form 47 still gives us the idea that there is some sort of legitimacy attached to it. There is no legitimacy. We have to call out all actions that are being done. And one good example of it is leaking the report by Dropsite of Commonwealth, which was being suppressed for over a year. And eventually, when it came out, Commonwealth Secretariat, under public pressure, had to release it and actually make it official. And once it is official, these issues which have been highlighted in that report have to be addressed as well. Now, so we have to go back to 2022 to actually understand the whole, the facade, how gradually, starting from regime change till today, when we are actually, we will actually forget about the worst things that have been done to our country through 26th Amendment, because now there is 27th Amendment in the making as well. Now, the story of regime change, it begins in 2022, which was engineered by the military and intelligence arms through political manipulation and judicial complicity, because we should not forget how the courts were left open till midnight in case there was anything that the court has to intervene. Now, Imran Khan's elected government was brought down not by any democratic means, but through horse trading and managed no confidence motion, because that no confidence vote was a managed no confidence vote. And soon after, what we saw is that when we saw the departure of General Bajwa, because then we come to November of 2022, and the beneficiary of that no confidence vote and the form of the new PDM first government were the same old political houses of Sharif and Zardari. But one thing that was very clear to them, that their own existence basically depends on minusing Imran Khan from the system. Because the way Imran Khan stood tall from the previous experiences of prime ministers being thrown out by the military regime was how he responded to all this blackmail and being pushed out. He called out the whole regime change and all the factors behind that, and that actually ended up in a cipher case. And there was a time when the military regime used to dub this case as open and shut case, and that case was eventually thrown out by courts as well. And that open and shut case had no basis. Actually, everything that Imran Khan told the public in 2022 about his regime change turned out to be 100% correct and documented, actually. And those documents were also released by another US independent media house, Intercept, in 2022 and 23. Now, the existence of current regime relied on having a person as Chief of Army Staff who would ensure that Imran Khan stays out of the system. And there comes the choice of Asim Munir, who actually, in reality, should have retired by the date new army chief was to be selected by the cabinet or the prime minister. But he was given an extension of 2 or 3 days in his tenure as the chief of army staff, and therefore he was chosen. And the only criteria for his choosing to be chief of army staff was his absolute hatred for Imran Khan. And the reason for that was not any institutional reason, but a very petty reason, that he was removed unceremoniously as the DG of ISI, probably becoming the least person of ISI serving for the least number of months. I think he only served for 7 or 8 months. Now, this appointment was not an ordinary appointment, because this was a man with mission. And then he started the mission, and his mission was to target the PTI, dismantling of PTI and Imran Khan. And then from November of 2022 till 2023 May, there is a period where we saw that an elected representative government in Punjab of Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf was dismantled. And Imran Khan, as Dr. Usman was explaining him, he's an international cricketer, a fast bowler, an all-rounder, so he went all out. He dissolved the provincial assemblies in the hope for fresh elections, and that constitutionally mandated option was denied to Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf and Imran Khan, and that gave the birth to the gift that the nation has today in the form of Mohsen Naqvi, the longest serving caretaker Chief Minister of Punjab, under whose chief ministership we had the May 9th, or as Imran Khan calls, the false flag operation. Now, the period between 2022 November, from the time of Asim Munir becoming army chief till the May of 2023, we saw a very well coordinated crackdown by the ISI and military intelligence and even intelligence bureau on PTI and its ranks and file. But as Imran Khan was there, he was able to fight all these attacks off. But we saw the associates being turned out against him, marriage scandal, relatives and friends were dragged into smear campaigns, harassment, passport cancellation, ECL, corruption, false corruption cases, and everything. And the message was very clear that resistance would be crushed, not just politically, but personally. And during this period, we also had at least 3 assassination attempts on Imran Khan's life, one out of which actually ended up Imran Khan being seriously and severely injured. Now, then we come to the false flag operation of May 9th. And May 9th is a moment in Pakistan's recent history, or the dark age I call, because that May 9th, if you now look back, that provided the so-called excuse to the current military regime to violate any sort of order that was in the country. I have been practicing in Pakistan. I practiced law for over 20 years in Pakistan. My work has always been about other than those 4 or 5 years that I worked in NAB as prosecutor, defending and upholding the fundamental human rights. So therefore, I had the first-hand experiment with the working of the courts. Pakistani judicial system was always a weak system, but at the same time, we always had that hope from the courts, especially the high courts and Supreme Court, and enforcement of human rights through the judicial review process. It was not ideal, but it was functioning. But what we saw after 9th May 2023, that the attack was not just on PTI, but it was on the institutions that were somewhat functioning in Pakistan. And one of the biggest victim, I would call, of this was the judiciary of Pakistan. Now, the 9th May, the turning point, Imran Khan was arrested. It had, you've seen in the video as well, spontaneous protests erupted nationwide, and then what happened next bore all the hallmarks of a staged operation, because there's till today, and Imran Khan has been asking for it time and again, missing CCTVs. There is no CCTV. All the protesters were let free to go to the protesting, the points where they were protesting, and a ready-made narrative was already in the offing that PTI is an anti-state party. Now, that actually changed the whole scenario in Pakistan then, because after that we saw military trials of civilians. And you also have to understand that military trial of civilian is not happening for the first time in Pakistan, but it is happening for the first time against political prisoners. Because in recent history, we had military trial of for terrorists in Pakistan, especially after the SWAT operation. But even on that, the court ruling that came, it had a sundown clause, and it had given the right to appeal in the normal courts, in the high courts and Supreme Courts. What is different in this particular case is that it's the first time the military trial of political prisoners, but it's also not giving them so far, although the court judgment says that the government has to legislate to give right to appeal in the high courts and Supreme Court, and despite passing of the mandated period, that law has not been made. And so this is something new, and it also particularly targeted those who were associated with Imran Khan's family, as we saw Hassan Niazi, who was a young voice among the lawyers, a human rights activist, and his main crime turns out to be not just being nephew of Imran Khan, but being loyal to Imran Khan and his ideology. And then how this was, managed, because post 9th May, although we've had so many courts actually asking questions, but that was the period from 2023 onwards till, I would say, 2024. But during this period from the 9th of May, the establishment or the military in Pakistan found an excuse to crush any sort of dissent. And there were two factions which became, or two segments of our society, which became the prime target of this crackdown. One was the judiciary, and second was the freedom of expression. Now, judiciary became the victim through erosion of any sort of independence. We have individual judges who would still question, who would get short orders, but establishment would eventually manage turning over of such judgments, which will be just a short reprieve. Now, the judicial capture was important for this operation to be successful, because this would not have been possible for Pakistani military to take over the whole country in the fashion and manner that they wanted. But they found allies within the judiciary who also hated Imran Khan. So just like the choice of Chief of Army Staff, and the only criteria was hatred for Imran Khan or being a so-called victim of Imran Khan, they found another partner in the judiciary, that was Qazi Faiz Issa. Qazi Faiz Issa had his issue with Imran Khan because his 3 undeclared properties became the reason for filing of reference against him, and then once he switched sides to the military, he was not only reinstated but also made the Chief Justice of Pakistan. And that was the partnership which enabled the making of Form 47 government that we have in Pakistan now. But till that point was achieved, till Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf was fully dismantled, the elections were delayed, and that was also facilitated by Qazi Faiz Issa, despite various judges in the Supreme Court and High Court being in the opposition voice, but such voices were also silenced. And one prime example is Justice Ijazul Ahsan, who actually had to resign, Mazahir Naqvi, and there are so many other judges who either had to resign or resign to fate. We have judges of Islamabad High Court having written to their Chief Justice and Chief Justice of Pakistan, including Qazi Faiz Issa, what has been happening to them because Imran Khan's cases were being heard in Islamabad High Court. The six judges of Islamabad High Court have penned down all the sufferings that they and their families had to suffer at the hands of ISI, Pakistani Intelligence Agency, for fixation of cases as to their liking or the decisions they wanted to be given in specific cases of Imran Khan and his party members. Then during this period, we also saw a new phenomena in Pakistan, I would say, and that phenomena was how the loyalties were switched on press conferences and on TV shows. And many of those hosts or journalists or so-called anchors who interviewed people who were victim of enforced disappearances, despite actually, rather than questioning them where they were for last 2 or 3 months, that they were missing and their habeas petitions were pending in the courts, they were given the floor to spell out basically, or to read out a given statement where they were leaving Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, or some actually went even further to even start a smear campaign against Imran Khan. So all that happened post 9th May 2023, and this new form of dictatorship that was adopted. And then eventually we come to the point of election of 2024 in February, and before election it was so as the Commonwealth report that is now official and public, and EU report is still being suppressed, but the Commonwealth report actually documents the pre-poll rigging, and it actually labels the judicial system and specifically Qazi Faizisa's decisions and judgments, how the symbol of bat was stolen from Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, knowing very well that this is going to damage Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, and that was not just enough. They also had to actually unregister Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf as a contesting political party. So Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf candidates had to contest 2024 elections without being Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf candidates. They all had to be what we call Azad Umidwar, or independent candidates. So they were given a whole array of election symbols, and it pretty much became a joke in 2024 that it was a whole vegetable market that was allotted to these independent candidates. But hats off to the social media and the strength of, I wouldn't say just Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf official social media, it's the social media of the people of Pakistan and the youth of Pakistan, which came out in a very new sort of genuine manner, where they were able to spread the word, and people could, on the polling day, people could recognize who was the candidate for Imran Khan without actually having one common symbol. And that result then, or that exercise then pushed the regime to install a Form 47 government. And that also is documented in the Commonwealth report as well, how there are so many missing Form 45, because Form 45 is what leads to Form 47. Form 45 is the evidence, is the basis of vote count that actually makes you compile Form 47, and that's why now in common language in Pakistan it is called Form 47 government, and it's a Form 47 government which is missing Form 45, which is missing the votes, the mandate or the ballot. Now, so, but how the world, I mean, this is another question that comes to our mind, that how the Field Marshal, who became Field Marshal, and that's another story, and I think that's a very long topic to cover, but that also comes to the point how the Field Marshal or the regime was able to convince the world, especially the world that we sit in, we live in, the Western world, the Western world capitals like London and Washington, D.C., and that whole story basically takes us back to the regime change and all the lobbying that was done by General Bajwa against his own Prime Minister back in 2021 and 22, where he was able to use lobbyists hired in the US to convince the White House and the US administration of Biden at that time that Imran Khan is actually somehow Islamic fundamentalist, or he is pro-Russia and he has this vision of pan-Islamism. So that basically takes everyone who has any sort of interest in Pakistan away from Imran Khan. And Imran Khan's only fault turned out to be him putting Pakistan first and putting his interest of Pakistani people first. But the labeling of Imran Khan really helped. And the war of Ukraine, of course, that was another factor that helped the current regime to have the crackdown. And especially if you look at the statement that was given by EU for not releasing, the official statement that the EU has given for not releasing the election observers report of EU, is that if they release the report, that will impact the foreign relation of EU with Pakistan, which basically tells us the story that it is in their interest not to release this report, because if that report is released, their favored government in Pakistan would not be in place. Now, there's a whole list of things that can be talked about this, but we can either have that in question and answer, or I would like to discuss that with Wajahat if he's joining us. I'm not sure. There's one other thing that I want to discuss before I close my part of talk and we get into either question answers or session with Wajahat, that how this period from 2022 till 2025 that we are in now, and during this period we have seen a political party being dismantled. People came out for protest, people dissented, people came out protesting when Imran Khan was there in the field, people came out protesting against the regime when Imran Khan was arrested, people came out despite the threat of military trials, protesting in September of 2024 on Imran Khan's call from prison. People came out protesting in October of 2024, and people came out of protesting on 26th of November 2024. But every time it ended up in a unfavorable results, the worst being 26th of November. And there's a lot to talk about leadership. But one thing that has now come out from this experience or experiment in Pakistan is that the leadership generally has become irrelevant, because people have started taking their own initiative, because the issue right now is not just associated with Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf or Imran Khan. The issue right now for any Pakistani who believes in Pakistan, who has his stakes in Pakistan, is Pakistan's own existence. Because the way Pakistan is heading, or the way Pakistan is heading, it's actually a disastrous way. The recent 2 meetings of our Field Marshal with President Trump, they reveal that the Field Marshal will go to any extent to get legitimacy and longevity for his own rule in Pakistan. We have seen the recent example, for example, the Financial Times story even today, which talks about government of Pakistan, or the Field Marshal, I would say, offering a port to US, and that port in Pasni will be offered to US right next to Gwadar and Iran. So bringing this another nightmare in the region, although there are also reports that US or the White House doesn't trust the deceiver because he always makes big promises but might not be able to deliver. So they actually might think twice to commit. But this is a disaster that is brewing in Pakistan, and there are some examples to be taken by the recent protest in Kashmir, because the protests in Kashmir were, again, this is the third, I think, wave of protest without any political party and without any declared sort of a leadership, and which has been able to achieve some results. And we can learn some lessons in Pakistan, that especially if we put that in comparison to what has happened in September, November, and October of 2024. So there's a lot to be learned. But I think we are going to be joined by Wajahat.
No,
sorry.
Wajahat is not available at the moment. If you have any questions for Barrister Shahzad Akbar, anybody wants to ask any questions?
Thank you so much, Shahzad. It was very helpful. I hope, and I just want to clarify, you keep on referring to they. They appointed, our current Chief of Army Staff, and they then decided to do this. Would you just expand who you mean exactly by they? Is there a core group of people? Is there a combination of people? Or is it just single person who you have turned into a plural?
Yeah, so it's so when I said they, it was PDM's first government, because the appointment was in 2022. And of course, the driving seat was with PMLN, but as the Prime Minister was Shehbaz Sharif, but it wasn't Shehbaz Sharif's decision, but the decision of Nawaz Sharif and Mariam in that sense. But if we go into, I think, minute details, it still comes as not just one person, but a mindset of a set of people. And when I say they, these are the group of people who are scared of Imran Khan, because they might not have any love lost for the military, because they themselves have been suffering at the hands of military every now and then. But their problem is that just like the US, they've also been made to realize, or made to believe, rather, that if Imran Khan is out, they're all in. So I think it's the common interest among them, and by them I say, for example, People's Party and Nawaz League might not like each other, they might hate each other, but what brings them together is their fear of Imran Khan. So I think when I say Asim Munir, I would say his choice might be just of 2 or 3 individuals, but the interest of having Asim Munir as army chief became a united interest of People's Party and PMLN at that time in 2022. And as as it happens in all the horror movies, once the monster is out, then it's on to the monster when he leaves. And I think this is what's happening now, because we are looking at another extension in 2025, which basically his own choice, if he will get the 2 years extension as it is by operation of law, as Rana Sanaullah says, or he would like a fresh appointment of 5 years as per the amendment made in the Army Act 1952, but done in 2024.
I mean, there's another way of saying it, which you may have found if one of my tweets, that we must get rid of 3 families, Sharifs, Zardaris, and top army brass. Whether you do it legally or by some other way, but Pakistan's survival is only dependent once these people disappear from Pakistan. Thank you.
And while you're taking the mic to him, I just want to add one thing. I think that what Dr. Usman also mentioned earlier on as well, and that's the Office of Chief of Army Staff. You see, when we talk about the military and how the military has been ruling, and there's a whole lot of things that we can talk about, but what change we are looking at, because the change cannot be that we will not have an army tomorrow. Of course we will have an army tomorrow. We sit in a region where we will need a strong army and quite proactive army and other armed forces. Of course they have to be under civilian control. But within army, you also have to indulge into the structure of army itself, because the Office of Chief of Army Staff has become a dictatorship in itself. Because the Office of Chief of Army Staff is such that even within army, the corps commanders do not have the liberty, or the formation commanders do not have the liberty to think. We have examples of recent times, in last couple of years, a lot of general officers have been sacked, they have been court-martialed, just simply to question the methods that are being used, or the way the army is being used to interfere in civilian matters, or it's actually getting too much into it, because generally army doesn't mind getting involved in political affairs, but when they see it is happening too much and too deep, which is affecting army's own interest, even those questions are not being allowed. So I think one of the things that we need to look at is the Office of Chief of Army Staff and why everything. So one example to give you is that up till 1970s, the promotion from actually up to 1990, the promotion in the army was through a board, but now it is the Office of Chief of Army Staff. So these things have to be, I think, rethink. Sorry. There was a question.
You've asked a question, have you?
So very quickly, sir. Yeah, while you were talking about all of these happenings after the regime change operation, my mind was imaginatively, I was thinking about the night of the long knives and the 1930s Europe. So it is a glimpse of the Hitler's Nazi regime that we can see in Pakistan now. So what is the ultimate solution? Is that a revolution like the French Revolution, or what? Thank you.
Well, there are a lot of similarities between Hitler and Asim Munir, but I think the racial aspect here is the political association. I think the solution lies in people's own initiative, because you see, like any other profession, politics in Pakistan has become a profession. There are professional politicians, and then there might be some accidental politicians, but the only one who survive in all the systems are the professional and hereditary politicians. And if you see in your political sphere, there are names who have been, even in PTI now, let's be frank, a lot of leadership has been either in this party or that party. Someone has come from here, someone has been there. They've always been in politics. For example, persons like me, a middle class working professional, I wasn't in politics. I never considered myself to have been in politics. I was doing a role or a job, and once it was against my principle, I decided to quit rather than actually joining a new party. Had I been a professional politician, I would look for other political avenues or political parties. So all these who actually, and these are the people who talk about the practical politics and what is possible and what is not possible. But I think the solution is outside all this. The solution lies with the people, and the solution lies with examples of what we have seen not only once, but more than once in last 2-3 years in Azad Jammu Kashmir, where the people, it's a leaderless sort of revolution on a very smaller scale. There were no as such political figures as leader of this Awami Action Committee. There were booksellers, tea stallers, and ordinary people who were sort of leading these people. So they were not really established for long enough to have been manipulated by intelligence agencies of Pakistan. So I think in that sense, the solution lies with the youth, and not really looking for, there were smaller initiatives like Mission Noor we saw, there was a call given, although the establishment or the government or the PMLN tried to stigmatize it by religious affiliation or trying to start a whole new smear campaign around it, but I think it was successfully executed. So similar actions where actually people get out and have their own demands, because even if you take the political demands out of equation right now, there are so many social injustices and real on-ground economic issues that people can actually stand, unite, and push away the regime. And I think that can be one of the way.
Shahzad Sahab, thank you very much.